Assalamu alaikum. Dear students, this is me, Atiq Ahmad. Today we are going to study the topic surface area to volume ratio. Large cells have less surface area as compared to their volume, while small cells have more surface area as compared to their volume. Usually, large cells have less surface area as compared to their volume, while small cells have large surface area as compared to their volume. Now first you people have to understand the two important concepts. What is surface area and what is volume? So surface area. Surface area is the area of an outer part or uppermost layer of something. If suppose we take example of cell, so the area of the uppermost layer of the cell is surface area. Suppose this is a cell, this is a whole cell. So this whole area basically, this is the surface area. Now what is volume? Basically the second important concept you have to understand, that what is volume. Volume is the amount of space that a substance or object occupies. Volume is basically the space, this space. Suppose this is cell, so this is the surface area. This is the whole cell, so this is the surface area, and this is the internal area which is occupied by this cell. So this is the volume. This internal whole area is the volume. So usually, back to the point, usually large cells have less surface area, because when the cells grow in size, so they have small or less surface area, and that is compared to the volume which is more. So the internal volume is much more, but the surface area become less. So usually large cells have less surface area as compared to the volume, but small cells have more surface area as compared to their volume. We will move toward the teaching points. Basically, the need of nutrients and rate of waste production are directly proportional to the cell volume. It means that if a cell have large volume, so its nutrient requirements will be more. Similarly, the rate of waste production will be also more. So the need of nutrients as well as the waste production, that is directly proportional to the cell volume. Those cells have more volume, they will require more nutrients, as well as there will be more waste production. Now the cell takes up the nutrients and excrete waste through its cell membrane surface. Now the cells take the nutrients from the environment through its cell surface, and that surface is basically the cell membrane. So through the membrane, the cells take up nutrients from the environment, and they excrete their waste products which is produced inside through the cell membrane. So if the cell grow in size and their volume become much more, but its area is less, so the less surface area cannot fulfill the nutrient requirements of the large volume of the cell. But a large cell has a much smaller surface area as compared to its volume than smaller cells. When a cells grow in size, suppose this is a big cell, so this surface area become less as compared to this internal volume. This internal volume become much more. So this surface area is less to fulfill the nutrient needs of the internal large volume. While the small cells, suppose if we take this small cell, so this surface area, this is large as compared to the internal volume. The volume is less, but the surface area is large. So this large surface area of this small cell can easily fulfill the needs of its internal volume. Now each unit of volume requires a specific amount of surface area to supply its metabolic processes such as photosynthesis, respiration, etc. with raw material. Each unit of a cell, it is supplied with a particular amount of raw material for various processes, photosynthesis, respiration. That is the requirement of that volume. The amount of surface area available to each unit of volume vary with size of the cell. Now, when the cell size grows, the volume become more and the surface area become less. The internal content, the internal area become more, but the surface is comparatively less to fulfill the needs of the internal large volume. As the cell grows, its surface area to volume ratio decreases. At some point in its growth, its surface area to volume becomes so small that its surface area is too small to supply with raw material to its volume. At this point, the cell stops growth. Whenever the cell grow in size, we will start from the small cell. Suppose this is a small cell. So this whole surface area, this is comparatively larger to the inner volume. This inner volume is less. So this large surface area provide all the nutrients to this internal volume. It is pretty easy for this surface area to provide all the nutrients to this internal volume, as well as to remove the metabolic waste from this cell, from this internal volume. But if this cell grows to this size, this is a big size, so this surface area, this is comparatively less as compared to the internal volume. The volume become much more higher while the surface become much more lesser. So in this case, the surface area to the volume ratio, it becomes very much less, while in small cells it is large. So the small cells can easily fulfill the needs of each unit of its volume, while the large cells have small surface area which cannot fulfill the internal needs of the volume of that cell. Thus, if the cell grows beyond a certain limit, not enough material will be able to cross the cell membrane to accommodate the increased cellular volume, to fulfill the needs of the increased cellular volume. When this happens, the cell must divide into smaller cells with favorable surface area to volume ratio, or a cell cease to function. That is why cells are so small. This is basically the conclusion. Now, whenever the cells are small, they have large surface area. That large surface area can easily fulfill the nutrient requirements of the internal volume, because the surface area is more and the internal volume is less. In this case, the surface area to volume ratio, the SAV ratio, SA by V, this is the SAV ratio, surface area to volume ratio. So for the small cells, this is higher because the surface area is higher and the volume is less. But in case of large cells, the surface area is less and the volume is more. So the surface area is so small that it cannot fulfill the needs of the large volume. So what happens in this case, when the cell grows up to a certain limit, so its surface area become very much less, its volume becomes so much high, so its surface area and volume ratio become very much less, and the cell cannot be supplied with proper nutrients for its internal large volume. So what will happen? Ultimately, the cell will cease functioning, or otherwise the cell will start division. So that is why the small cells divide and those cells then grow up to certain limit but not beyond that limit, because if they grow beyond that limit, so the surface area will become less and the volume will become more. So then the surface cannot fulfill the requirements of the cell. So that's why the cell grow only up to certain limit and then they divide to form new cells. This is all about today's lecture. Next time we will meet with another lecture. Take care. Allah Hafiz.